Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to BYJU'S Exam Prep. Welcome to your weekly editorial analysis. My name is Savitri Krishnamurthy. I teach English and Logic at BYJU'S. This editorial analysis, if you've attended my session last week, you will know that I do the editorial analysis from a linguistic point of view. If you attend these sessions regularly, every week, it will help you in all the skills that are tested in your VARC section, the English section of any aptitude test. It will improve your reading, your comprehension, vocabulary, grammar, and overall you will feel very comfortable with tackling the VARC section of any aptitude test that you take, primarily CAT and non-CAT exams. Now, today's exam, afternoon Rohit, today's editorial is on a provision which is there in the Indian Penal Code. Because it is an analysis of a law or a provision about a law, therefore the language will be little difficult. All right, good afternoon Kalyani, good afternoon Shrivastava, Kushagra. Okay, Kushagra, I got your name. All right, so the language will be a little difficult, which is why in each of the slides I have not put too much content, very little content. How much time will it take for you to read these 5 lines? Good afternoon, Tarun. It will take you about 30 seconds. All right. So for each of the slides, I'll give you 30 seconds, maybe a little more. I'm going to read it along with you, read it silently initially and then summarize it for you. So that by the time you finish reading the passage, you will read it in 3 minutes flat. You will have an idea of what the passage is about, the author's tone, all the main things. Main point of the author, tone, subject, these things that you can read at first glance, you will know. When there is a specific question on any of the slides, I will take you back to the slide, which I did not do in the last week, right? In the last session. Are you ready to start? Start with your preparations of VARC through editorials. No better way. Editors of newspapers are masters of the English language and I am riding on their skills to get this for you. All right, start reading. 30 seconds. I think 20 should have been enough. All right. The first paragraph, the author says, the Law Commission has given a recommendation that the offense of sedition should be retained in penal law. What is sedition? The description of what is sedition, definition of what is sedition comes later on in this passage, so I will not explain it to you. So he says that the Law Commission has recommended these provisions should be there, but with a few safeguards. According to the author, this doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense because our current thinking, judicial and political, our current judicial and political situation is such that we do not need this colonial law anymore. Clear? The Law Commission has given a recommendation. That recommendation is that the sedition law should stay, should be retained. But that does not make sense. Next paragraph. This is the definition of sedition as it is given in the IPC, the Indian Penal Code. Sedition is described by the IPC, so it seeks to punish sedition. What is that? Speech or writing that brings or tries to bring in hatred, contempt, excites or tries to excite. This is how laws, the legal language sounds like this. Disaffection towards the government established by law. So if you write or speak something that makes you think bad about the government, disaffection means something which is negative, then it should be punished. That is how sedition is being described by the IPC. Clear? All right. Next para. Again, I'll give you 20 seconds to read. Tough. The language here is tough, but we will simplify it. The way to understand any passage is to put it in your own words, right? You are the master of your own brain. So you know what helps you understand something best. The validity of this provision was upheld by the Supreme Court in 1962, as far back as 1962. But it made one condition. What did it say? That there should be a constitutional restriction on free speech. Only if the offense was restricted to words that had a tendency to incite violence or cause public disorder. So if speech was there which incited violence or caused public disorder, then such speech can be taken as sedition. Alright, that's it. Next. Again 20 seconds. (1962), this was what the Supreme Court said. But now, what are legal experts saying? Big gap between 1962 and the 1960s and the 2020s. They pointed out that the panel's report fails to consider how far. Panel has given a report, and the author has said in 1962, Supreme Court had upheld the sedition provision in IPC. But legal observers have said now what the panel has said is not taking into account free speech or laws and jurisprudence regarding species has come a long way since 1962 when the Supreme Court had upheld the decision. A lot has changed since then. So while keeping sedition cases in abeyance last year, the Supreme Court has observed that the rigors of Section 124A of IPC are not in tune with the current social milieu. At present, that sedition law is not aligned with our social conditions. It is out of tune. This is what the Supreme Court had also observed. 1962 court had given a ruling. Law panel has said that, it had given a recommendation. But author says that recommendation that the sedition law should be there doesn't make sense. Why? He is going into the background. That at that time it was different, but now legal experts have said free speech, jurisprudence, the laws regarding free speech have come a long way from 1962. So that provision is not necessary. Second thing, the Supreme Court has said that this particular provision of IPC on sedition is not current. It is obsolete. It is not in line with our current social conditions. Clear? All right. Next, look at how beautifully he is arguing each part of the case. 20 seconds for the next para. Quick. Good afternoon, Ritik. So next para. What does he say? This is what the court has said. The union government, the central government has also said that look, it is time to re-examine the provision on sedition in the Indian Penal Code. We have to now consider the provision in the context of its validity. The restrictions, the law on sedition, the provision on seditions places a lot of restrictions on our fundamental right, especially right to free speech. So in context of that, we need to reconsider this law. That's what the court has said. That's what the union government has also said. Then the author has given this. Given its overboard nature. Now, if I say that this is the great, many people think that fans of MS Dhoni go overboard in describing his contribution to India's World Cup victory. I do not agree with that, but I'm just saying. Overboard means going too far. So he is saying the sedition provision itself, the nature of the sedition provision itself is its overboard nature. That means goes a little too far. Therefore, he says the definition of sedition will not hold good, will not hold water against when you test it against the restrictions it places on individual freedom rights, especially the right to free speech. Clear? All right. So now what has the author said next? Beautifully analyzed the panel's recommendation and his own views on it. All right, 20 seconds for the next para. All right. The commission, which commission are we talking about? The Law Commission, which studied the provision on sedition in the IPC and gave its recommendation. The commission has sought, now he told about the provision of sedition in the IPC. He's talked about the 1962 Supreme Court ruling. He's talked about the present condition, what is the Supreme Court's view, what is the Union government's point of view, and then now he's come, okay, given this context, why the commission or panel, the Law Commission was constituted in the first place on this question. Now the commission's point of view he is giving. The commission has sought to address two concerns usually raised about sedition. Okay, these are the 2 points of concern. These are the 2 main points. Its rampant misuse, this sedition provision has been misused a lot, and its relevance to the present day. So it has said, okay, we're going to address this provision in the light of these 2 concerns. It has repeated the hackneyed argument. Which one? The commission has given a hackneyed argument. What's the meaning of hackneyed? Something that is done too much, something that is boring, trite, said so often that it has become hackneyed. It's very boring, it's been said often, it doesn't hold any originality anymore. So it has given that argument that has been given so many times before, that a law's misuse is no ground to withdraw it. Or just because somebody is misusing a law doesn't mean you should withdraw the law. Right? See that it is not misused, but don't misuse the withdraw the law. The law itself might be good, people are misusing it, that's not the problem of the law. That's what the commission seems to be saying. So the law's misuse is not a ground to withdraw it. That's one of the reasons. However, this is one argument. What is the author, the editor of this newspaper saying? However, what it has failed to consider is that its very existence, the very existence of these provisions on the statute affords great scope for its unjustified use. Only when the law is used is it being misused. Hello, Sonali. So when the Law Commission says, okay, just because a law is being misused, that should not be ground for withdrawing it. Counter to that is, if you have such a law, then only it will be misused. So it is a very misusable law. Why are you having it in the first place? The fact that it is there is allowing the misuse of its law. Often with deliberate intent to suppress dissent and imprison critics. Why is the law being misused? With 2 aims. Whenever there is any dissent or opposition, the powers that be try to suppress it. Second, if somebody criticizes you, good, bad, awkward, silence them. So the law is being used or rather misused for these purposes. It's not exactly that they're bothered about sedition, they're bothered about the country, about a person speaking against the government. It's more because they don't want to tolerate any dissent and tolerate any criticism. That is why it is being aimed at the opponents who are criticizing or the dissenters. Right? Next. Have I given the correct one? Yeah. Next point, the author is saying it is doubtful if a mere prior sanction requirement, so the sedition law requires certain things. So the author is saying this law has certain provisions which will not work. I'll tell you what mooted. As mooted is considered. Okay. It is doubtful if a mere prior sanction requirement as mooted in the report or a mandatory preliminary probe will lead to fewer sedition cases. Now, the provisions have some conditions in them. Author is saying that itself is not enough to lead to fewer sedition cases. Okay. Hrithik, we read it in the first paragraph, no? Look up the dictionary. The author has given what is the description of sedition according to the Indian Penal Code. Any speech, action, writing that goes against the government. But basically anti-government, anti-country activities. They are a threat to the government or the country is known as sedition. Alright. Look up the meaning. Write the words. The description is given in the passage. But you can go beyond that and join. Alright, next. Yeah, I know you joined a little late. So next time, exactly at 12, be there. Alright, next. 20 seconds again. I'll explain everything again. Don't worry. We will summarize the passage. You all have to summarize it for me first. No problem, Hrithik. No apologies required. Any doubt asked in class is good for the teacher. Okay. The description was there. I'll take you back to it. Alright. Yeah. Next one. No. I should be thanking you. No apologies. Next. 20 seconds to read this. I'm giving you 30 seconds. A little more time. Okay, so what were the reasons the author has, the commission had given? Let's look at the first. Misuse is not a cause for removing a law. But the author's counter to that is the fact that the law is there, is making the, is allowing the misuse. Okay, and just by having the sedition provision will not lead to fewer sedition cases. Next point that the law commission or panel has said is that something which is a colonial era provision, because people said it's a provision of the colonial age. When the Britishers ruled us, this was there. Why? When the Indians dissented or when they rose against the British, they were punished, they were jailed on charges of sedition. So this is a colonial era provision. It helped our colonial masters. Why should it be there now against our citizens? This was one of you. Is it okay now? Alright. So, just because anybody else faced this problem, please type in. I'll wait for a couple of seconds. Are only Rohit and Pratyusha facing this? Oh, is it okay now? Good, Rohit. Alright. So, just because it's a colonial era provision doesn't mean that, you should get rid of it. Alright, so the panel has said we should keep the sedition provision. On what grounds? There are various extremist and separatist movements and tendencies in the country. So to put a check on them, we need this provision. Second, the ever proliferating role of social media. There is social media and there are these evil people sitting on social media who are propagating radicalization. They are trying to divide the country. And to act against them, we need a sedition provision. So, social media evils to counter, we need the sedition provisions. To counter extremism, to counter separatism. Screen is not clear. Is it not clear for everyone? Quickly, guys, when you see it, you tell us if all of you are facing the problem. Right? Or just some of you. Understood? Alright. Just refresh. Alright, next We are almost done with reading, and then I'll summarize it quickly for you, so that every time you read an editorial, that's exactly what you have to do. Each of the paragraphs, you rephrase the main point. By the time you come to the last one, you know what the main point is, right? All right, next line, next few lines, again 15-20 seconds. Okay, good. Nice to know that it's clear. Everything is fine, except the fact that we lost the WTC final, but it's okay. Life is good. Life goes on even if we lose test matches. All right. So the panel has said to deal with these divisive tendencies, separatism, extremism, radicalization on social media, we need the provision on sedition in the IPC. But what is the author saying? He says this may not be a sufficient reason to retain it, as all this divisive propaganda, incitement to violence, imputations affecting social harmony, any kind of suggestions that would affect evil, wrong suggestions affecting social harmony can be curbed by other penal provisions. You don't need to have something on sedition. You have other laws which will take care of all this, so that you don't need a sedition law. In fact, the author is ending it by saying an effective legal framework against hate speech. What we need is not a sedition provision. What we need is an effective legal framework against hate speech. All right? That is what we need. We don't need to punish, penalize speech or writing that targets the government. It's a democracy. Governments have to face criticism. A democracy thrives on dissent and criticism. But if there is hate speech, if people go across the line, we need laws. So we need a legal framework against hate speech, but we don't need to have a provision that punishes speech or writing that targets the government. This is not required, and this is what the sedition provision does. So at the end, what does the author say? Notwithstanding the report, report तो है, उसको ignore करो. Notwithstanding the report, regardless of the report, the government should consider repealing the provision. What is repeal? Totally remove the law, change the law. When you pass a law and you take it back and cancel it, that is called repealing, right? So what is the passage about? The provision of the sedition law. It is not just that. It is about a recent law commission report which said that the provision should stay. Author's view is that the reasons that the law commission has given are not correct. It says to counter extremism and all this, then we have other laws to deal with it. It is an outdated law. It's a colonial provision. It needs to go. The law is misused because it is there. Therefore, the law has to go. This is the author's main argument. All right? Okay. Are you ready for the questions? We've read the passage. Now, are you ready for the questions? Okay. First one. Always, my first question in any reading comprehension passage has to do, it's not clear after refreshing the screen. Hrithik, I think it's only a problem with your computer, your system, right? Maybe watch this session later. Try to see if it gets better. Try to refresh again. Otherwise, join again, right? I'm not technically good to give all this advice. I'm sure somebody there will tell you what to do. All right, which one sums up the main point of the editorial? Quickly give me the answers. I'll read the answer options. The Law Commission's report on retaining the provision of sedition must be hailed. The concept of sedition is obsolete and goes against contemporary thinking. The government should follow the recommendations of the Law Commission on sedition. The government should repeal the provision on sedition in the IPC contrary to the Law Commission's recommendation. Pratik, I will show you the last part again. The last Nishkarsh and Pratik, I'm showing you the last paragraph again. What has been said in the last paragraph? An effective legal framework against hate speech is what is needed, more than a provision to penalize speech or writing that targets the government. What is the provision to penalize the speech or writing that targets the government? This is the sedition provision. So what is the author saying? We don't need the sedition provision. We need an effective legal framework. Therefore, what is the last line, guys? Notwithstanding the report को ignore करो, report जो भी बोलने दो. This is what the government should do. So remove this. What is the author saying? What's the last line saying? Government should consider the repeal. Repeal means to cancel. Government should cancel this provision from IPC. That is what the author is saying. Repeal, cancel. Now read the question and tell me. Which one sums up the main point? Gautam, what is the meaning of hail? I will not give an example on cricket. I'll give an example on films instead. Amitabh Bachchan has been hailed as one of the greatest stars of the Indian movie scene. Hail means to praise somebody. So ये तो नहीं होगा. The concept of sedition is obsolete and goes against contemporary thinking. By the way, this is a point mentioned in the passage, but this is not the main point. Because it is obsolete, because it goes against contemporary thinking, the author has directly said government should repeal it. Therefore, the correct answer is D. All of you got it? One word can change the meaning, right? Repeal is to cancel. Excellent. Every time I will give you the main point question. So in any reading comprehension exam, you will get a main point question for sure, in different ways, but that is asked. Primary purpose main point, title, or what are the main words? At CAT would ask the key ideas in a passage. If you read it in the correct way, you have to get this question right. Okay. Question 2. Which of the following is the author's view? Author is the editor, right? Author's view on repealing the provision of sedition. Now remember the tone of the passage. Is the author in favor of the law on sedition? Or is he against it? Based on that, you'll say the author wants the law or doesn't want the law. If he doesn't want the law, why does he not want the law? What are the reasons he has given for not wanting the law? Then you look at the options. The misuse of a law is not a strong enough reason to repeal it. The provision with reasonable safeguards is imperative in contemporary India. The existence of the provision on sedition leads to its misuse by authorities to silence critics. The sedition provision in the IPC will lead to fewer sedition cases. Now, a CAT question setter, when I say CAT question setter, any MBA exam, but in this, the top of the hierarchy are the CAT question setters. They are extremely intelligent people. I bow to their intelligence every time I see a question. They know that students are often lazy. Like I am today, I am not showing you the passage. Okay? I'll show you the passage and we'll eliminate each of the options. So they know students are lazy. They are in a hurry to finish marking and go to the next question. So what would they do? They rely on their imperfect memory. All our memories are imperfect. We read something, we understand something. Ye word to hai, so this must be the answer. That is our attitude. That is how I passed my Hindi exam. You know, we used to get, what was it called? Comprehension. It was called Apathit Gadhyansh or something. And I knew no Hindi. Okay, very bad. Very poor my Hindi was. Thanks to Amitabh Bachchan and pictures, I've come to this stage when I can at least show off a little bit of Hindi. So I used to read the question, read 2 words in the question, go to the passage, search for those 2 words, write that entire paragraph and hope and pray. My Hindi handwriting was excellent. And hope and pray that the teacher would feel kind and mark. That's what some of you have done here. not written the whole thing, but ye word to tha, so this must be the answer. Let's go back. Now, whose view is he asking? Acha, I'll ask you a question. Author of the passage. Author means the author of this passage. Who is the author of the passage? The person who's written the editorial. So assume editorial, Mr. ABC. Okay, I'm not going to give you the name. You should not drop names in classes. Alright, okay, editor of this newspaper. So is he, question, is he saying sedition law hona chahiye ya nikalna chahiye? What is he saying? Is he saying we should have a law on sedition in the IPC or we should not have? What is the author saying? There are two people here. Law Commission believes a one thing and the author believes one thing. Correct? So there are two people, two views have been expressed. So author is saying sedition law should be there or not? Quickly. Sedition law should be there or not? Not. Correct? He is against the sedition law. What is Law Commission saying? It should be there. Correct? Okay. So those of you who thought it is A, the misuse of a law is not a strong enough reason to repeal. Repeal means cancel, remove, right? This is a reason given by the Law Commission, not by the author. Correct? The misuse of a law is not a reason to remove the law, to discard it. This was given as a reason by the Law Commission. They said, listen, there are two assumptions we are working on. One is that there has been rampant misuse of this law. Agreed. But just because it has been misused doesn't mean we remove the law. That's what the Law Commission said. So this is a reason given by the Law Commission not to remove the law. So A is not the answer. Agreed? It's not the author's view. This is the Law Commission's view. Second, the provision with reasonable safeguards is imperative. Imperative means urgent. Urgent and required. What did the author say? First paragraph. It goes against the present social conditions. This is what the Law Commission's recommendations don't make sense. Because everybody knows here in the first paragraph what does he. Let's quickly go back to the first paragraph. Some of you came late. Sorry. All right. The Law Commission's report that it should be retained flies in the face of current thinking. It doesn't make sense. We do not need this colonial law anymore. Many people think we don't need this colonial law anymore. Then the next part he says, in 1962 the Supreme Court had passed a law saying, had upheld it saying that, it can control speech and writing against the government. But now, here, the Supreme Court now thinks that the IPC goes against current social conditions. This is what the Supreme Court thinks. Given that the author also doesn't believe in the law anymore, you can also say that the author also believes that it goes against the current social conditions. So to say that it is required, urgently required in the current social conditions is also not the author's view. Agreed? What about 3? The existence of the provision of sedition leads to misuse by authority. Yes, it is C. Why? Because here the Law Commission has said that it has repeated the argument that the law's misuse is not a ground to discard it. Who said this? The Law Commission. How does the author counter it? The author says, but the very existence of the law is leading to it being misused. You can only stop the misuse by removing this faulty law. Therefore, the author's view is that the existence of the provision on sedition leads to its misuse by the authority. This, the author says, just because of the provision doesn't mean that there are going to be fewer sedition cases. So the correct answer is C. Simple passage, but because the language is a little complicated, y'all are making mistakes. But this is a classic cat passage. This is how a cat question setter will ask you questions. Alright? Okay. Next one. Next one. All of the following verse. Now, the only confusion is this. There are the author's views. There is the law commission's views. Don't get confused between the two. Author's view is no sedition law. Law commission view is yes, sedition provision should be there. And it has given justification. Here he is asking, all of the following were cited, given by the panel to retain the sedition provision in the IPC except. So what are the reasons the panel gave to retain? What are the reasons it gave? Okay, good, Ritik. Read the options. I'll take you back to the passage. Alright, what are the reasons the commission had given? Think. And then what are the reasons not given by the commission? The reason given by the commission should be justifying keeping the sedition provision. The reason not given by the commission will be the one given by the author. Remember that. So then go for that. The law can't be withdrawn just because it has been misused or has the potential for misuse. Is this in line with what the commission will say? Why would I remove a law just because it's been misused? Has given it or not? Think and then say. We are looking for except. So which is the reason not given by the commission? The sedition provision is in tune with the current social conditions, contrary to what opponents state. Is this the answer? Okay. Has this been given by the law commission to justify? Just because something is a provision dating back to the colonial era is not a justified ground to discard it. Does the commission give this reason? The sedition provision is imperative, required, because of the prevalence of various extremist and separatist movements in the country. Kushagra says B, Gautam says D. Gautam, we are talking of law commission. Alright, Rohit also says B, Ritik says B. Gautam, I'll take you back to the passage. Please give your answers. Let's look at the reasons given by the law commission. Okay. From here we'll start. Okay, first reason. Law's misuse is not a ground to discard it. Agreed? So yes, he has given it. Next. Just because it is a colonial era provision is not a ground to misuse it. Second reason it has given. Why should we keep it? To tackle the extremist and separatist movements and to tackle propaganda, propagating radicalization on social media. No, but fine, even if you get it, see, don't apologize for making a mistake. Find out where you made a mistake, even if you came late, okay? Please don't apologize for making a mistake. Alright? You should make mistakes and learn and then say, okay, I made a mistake because I misunderstood. The reason I took this passage is there is a lot of scope to confuse students. Don't think I'm mean. Okay? Yes. B was not mentioned by the commission. Neither that it is in tune. The other one is that everyone said it's against the social conditions. Does not mean that the law commission said it's in tune. B has not been mentioned in terms of the law commission's reasons, which is why B is the correct answer. Okay? B is not the law commission's view, therefore B is the correct answer in this case. Next one. I will take you back to the passage. Whenever there is a quote from the passage, what do you think this means? What do you think that means in the sentence? Always go back to the sentence. The answer will be just before the quote or immediately after the quote. Right? Refer to the following statement. Given its overboard nature, the sedition definition may not survive such scrutiny. What does the author refer to by such? What does he mean by such scrutiny? Alright, now we don't know where this came. We didn't read it in such great detail. In the exam also this happens. Whenever I have taken CAT, so basically I believe in one strategy. Sometimes I listen to youngsters. I am 20 plus, my colleagues are younger than me. So then when I listen to them, they'll say, finish out of 4 passages, they'll say I finish 2 passages, then I do the VA section, then I do the 3rd passage. Never works for me. Whenever I have done all the RCs first and then got to the VA section, that is the para-jumbles, para-completion, whatever is there, or I have gone in line with the questions that have appeared, I have got higher marks. I've got 99 plus. But the time I changed my strategy, I didn't do well. So whenever I have answered question with that such scrutiny, when I have done a question like this without following my gut feeling, let me spend that extra 30 seconds to find what is the scrutiny sentence, and then I'll answer. It has saved me a lot of minus marks. Okay, here it is. The Union government has said that we have to consider the sedition provision in the light of recent principles to test the validity on any restrictions on fundamental rights, especially free speech. इसको English में समझाइए. So when you speak to me in very high funda Hindi, I'll say speak in Hindi, like that. Simple English, what does it say? That you have to consider the sedition provision from the point of view of fundamental rights and especially from the point of view of free speech. The law was made by the British. Now in 2020s, I have to look at the law in terms of the individual fundamental rights and free speech. Does it go against it? You examine the law in terms of, does it go against fundamental rights? Does it go against free speech? What does scrutiny means? Close examination, scrutiny of answer papers. We just don't quickly read the answer paper and throw it out, right? Read every line that a student has written, every point that the student has made. That's called scrutiny. So, he is saying, if you examine the sedition provision in terms of, if you examine it very closely in terms of how it affects fundamental rights and free speech, it will not hold water, it will not hold up to such scrutiny. Okay, so what scrutiny is he talking about? Examining it. Examining it for what? Its alignment with the fundamental rights. Okay, that is entirely up to your strength, Hrithik. Lot of people do it the other way. I'm just talking about what works for me. Your examination strategy should be set in place by you after you take a couple of mocks. Which mock works best for you? In which mock did you get the highest marks and you found it really good? Then you will say this strategy worked. Let me see if it works for the next one. Okay, so there is no hard and fast rule that you should do only this. But many people generally work out 3 passages, then do the VA section and then come back to the 4th passage. I don't do it, I said. For me, RC is always the easiest section. That's why. Alright. Okay, what is such scrutiny? Now that I have explained, tell me. The examination of the provision and its authenticity as a colonial legacy. Is it a colonial legacy or not? Is that what we are scrutinizing it for? The examination of the validity of the definition of sedition vis-a-vis in relation to the fundamental rights of citizens. The examination of allegations of misuse. Are we examining how many times the law has been misused? The scrutiny of the arguments for repeal. So what are we examining? Is it really a colonial legacy? Is it going against our fundamental rights? Has there been misuse of the law, or what are the arguments for repealing it? So what are we scrutinizing it for? Quickly give me the answers. Rohit thinks it's B. What do the others think? Quickly, let me see your answers. We have lot more questions. Alright, Answer is yes. Examine it in terms of, does it go against our fundamental rights? Does it go against free speech? And he says it will go against it. All right. Allegations of misuse के बारे में ही लिखा ही नहीं है. Okay, it's not written there. So it has to be B. All right. Question 5. Which of the following weakens the Law Commission's argument? This is a CR question. So here, whenever they ask you to weaken an argument, what is the Law Commission's argument for retaining the provision? First, it says just don't remove a law because it is a colonial provision, because it has been misused. But that's not the reason it has given for keeping it. What are the reasons they have given for keeping it? Extremism, separatism, separatist movements, and radicalization through social media posts, right? So he says we need this law because there are extremist and separatist tendencies. To counter that, we need this law to counter social media propagating radicalization. So which option would say we don't need the sedition provision for this? These may be there, but we don't need the sedition provision for this. That is how you weaken it. Which one would weaken it? The propagation of radicalization on social media cannot be solved. क्या फर्क है? Why pass a law? Separatist movements are on the wane in India. कम होता जा रहा है. All the hotspots of India, now mercifully things are better. Is that a reason we don't need a law? There are more effective penal provisions against them. We have more effective laws against them. We don't need the sedition law. And these cannot be curbed by other penal provisions. We need it because you can't have other laws. This is the best law against it. Obviously, it will be C. We have other Kushagra and Kalyani got that right. Perfect. That there are other provisions. There are other laws. Why do you need a sedition law against it? Good, Virendra. All right. So that is why, that's how you weaken an argument. Find out what's the argument. You need it to counter this. You don't need it to counter that. We have other things in place to counter it. All right. Fly in the face of. It flies in the face of. So if you give me a suggestion, I says your proposal flies in the face of common sense. Uska matlab kya hai? Fly in the face of. Okay. To be violent and destructive. To be embarrassed about something. Give me the question number, please, Ritik. Question 5, 6 kya hai? Huh? To oppose what is sensible and normal, to be the current trend or rage. He says, the law panel has given a recommendation, लेकिन समझ में ही नहीं आया ऐसा recommendation क्यों दिया? It flies in the face of common sense. It flies in the face of whatever. So flying in the face is to oppose what is sensible and normal. Excellent. Next, which of the following is not a synonym of vestige? Any vestige of something. It's a colonial vestige. The sedition law has been called a colonial vestige. What do you think it means? Remnant, cause, remainder, or trace. Which one is not a synonym? So when you find two words which are similar, you can eliminate. They cannot be the synonym. One word. So which one would not be a synonym? 7. Remnant जो बाकी रह गया colonial days से जो बाकी रह गया. Remainder colonial days से जो बाकी रह गया. Trace whatever little is left of the colonial era. It cannot be cause. Therefore, B is the answer. Okay, remnant means जो बाकी रह गया. Remains, right, Rohit? So it cannot be that. Vestige, remnant is the same. We want not a synonym. Don't mark a synonym. The word abeyance is a dash and means what? What part of speech is abeyance? Okay, abeyance means what? It should be kept in abeyance. The law should be kept in abeyance. Okay? And what? So once you find out its meaning, tell me. Do not implement the law, keep it in abeyance. The proposal, keep it in abeyance. अब तो पैसा नहीं है implement करने के लिए. Keep it on the back burner, keep it in abeyance. Abeyance is actually a noun. Okay, so remember, for it to be an adjective, there has to be a noun before it. Okay, Otherwise, it cannot be an adjective. So, abeyance is a noun and it means suspension. Okay. Adjective always describes a noun. Okay. So, for example, honest and honesty. You are an honest person. Okay. Then, so you are an honest boy or girl. This is the noun and this word is describing it, so it's an adjective. What trait do you have? You have the trait of honesty, so this is an abstract noun. Okay? So, keep it suspended would be different. Suspension, abeyance, so that's a noun. I'll do parts of speech someday. Alright, now what have I done? I couldn't just give meaning, so I thought fill in the blanks karte hain. Okay? In that fill in the blanks, all these words are from the passage, but maybe I've changed. If it's been given in past participle form, I've put it in normal form. That's the only change I've made in some cases. The government dash a plan to deal with the dash corruption in public services. So the government rampant a plan. So the first word we want is put into place a plan. Verb chahiye. Which word is a verb here? That will go in the first blank. Second one would be to deal with the dash corruption. Now corruption here is a noun. What kind of corruption? You need an adjective there. So the government rampant a plan nahi hoga. The government hackneyed a plan nahi hoga. Hackneyed, I told you, is boring. The government dissent a plan nahi hoga. Dissent means opposition. So the government mooted. Okay, good. First word is D. Ritik says. Next one, to deal with the dash corruption in the public services. Public services mein pura corruption hai. So rampant. Perfect. So D and A are our answers. Mooted means considered, right? And rampant. Very good. Next one. The film became a blockbuster despite having a dash plot. वही plot था जो हर movie में है. फिर भी surprisingly this movie became a hit. Right? That's what he's saying. So the film became a blockbuster, huge hit, even though it had a dash plot. So what kind of plot? Hatke nahi tha. They all claim it is hatke, but it was not hatke. Hackneyed, the same plot which you see in every movie. Boy meets girl, there is separation, some fights happen, then okay. Alright. Have you ever wondered why Pathan became a hit? The effects for me. Shah Rukh Khan. Okay. Why something else didn't become a hit? No Shah Rukh Khan. Simple. Alright. The new rule that make work from office dash faced so much dash that it was soon dash. The new rule that make work from office dash. Rampant, hackneyed, dissent, mooted, mandatory, repealed. Faced so much dash that it was soon dash. जल्दी से दे दो. It has to be 3 words. So first letter में जो आएगा, first put that. A, B, C, B, C, D. What are the 3 words I need? Quickly. So it was soon repealed. Correct. Repeal, F is the last word. Virendra, okay, F is the last word. So why was it repealed? Because it faced, perfect, soon repealed. Why was it repealed? Because it faced a lot of opposition, dissent. So the new rule that made work from office what? Mandatory, compulsory. घर में से नहीं करोगे. Hybrid भी नहीं है. Work from office is mandatory. Faced so much dissent that it had to be soon repealed. Now you know how to use these words, right? Excellent. So ECF. All right. Grammar question of the day. Even if you don't know it, we'll do it in the next session. But quickly, just tell me, is the sentence correct or wrong? The Law Commission's recommendation that the offence of sedition be retained in penal law, albeit with some safeguards. Blah blah blah. Okay, flies in the face. अच्छा, ये correct है कि नहीं? That the offence of sedition be retained. Is this correct? Or should it be should be retained? Should I say that the offense of sedition should be retained? इसमें should missing है, or is the sentence fine? The Law Commission's recommendation that the offense of sedition be retained, is this correct or should be retained? Normally we would say should be, Virendra, but we are talking about the use of the subjunctive. Ma'am, shuru karte itna difficult concept, why are you starting? I'll tell it just quickly because this started. No, should is not required. This sentence is correct. Alright, sometimes I will change the sentence that is given in the original passage. Hindu does very, very strict editing of its content. Okay. In fact, once they ran a series saying, if you can find a mistake, grammatical or otherwise, and pointed it out, we shall accept it. And I couldn't. I used to look at the paper inside out. There are other newspapers where I found a lot of errors. In fact, when I may have to make grammar questions, I choose those papers. बहुत सारे गलतियां मिलते हैं. अच्छा, here, why? Whenever you have words like recommendation that, recommended that, demanded that, asked that, this format, what follows it should be in a noun, should be a noun clause. Then the verb has to be used in what is called the subjunctive form. What is that? In simple English, the verb should be in its normal form, the first form that you see in the dictionary. All right. So let's say, again, I keep giving this. I'll say, who said I came late? Hrithik. I don't remember who said. Okay, I came late. So I'll say, I request that. अब ये subjunctive form आ गया. Okay. Now normally what will I say? You should, okay, come to class on time. Now the word come, when you see it in the dictionary, what is the base form of come? Come. Past participle came, present participle coming, वो सब बाद में देते हैं. This is the base form of the verb. When you use that, you should not use should. So the teacher requested that I attend class on time. She suggested that we go early. So one trick to get it right, पहले should लगा दो, फिर should निकाल दो. Then the sentence is correct. Recommended that, demanded that, asked that, suggested that. The moment you find a verbs, especially words like this, recommended, demanded, suggested, then you have to, and has a that, then the verb that follows it should be in its base form. So be is the base form of is, right? Is, be, and whatever. So be retained, not should be retained. When you have a problem, add the should and remove the should. The kidnappers demanded that the ransom be paid in cash. Got it? Normally they demand that. Alright, grammar session done. Again we'll do the subjunctive because any question on recommendation suggestions, they use this form. Alright, so you want to join, if you haven't yet joined and you are planning to take CAT, join our CAT series with BYJU'S Exam Prep. The free trial is on. Start your free trial today. These excellent students were our toppers for CAT 2022. You can be one too. Join our sessions, work hard. It's only a question of when. I keep telling students, for CAT, it's only a question of when, not if. Our CAT 2023 comprehensive program has a lot. We pack a lot of things. We give our students a lot in our classes. Make sure you attend our sessions. Make sure you enroll in our sessions. We have a scholarship test, so you join us, you get a fee waiver up to 90% scholarship depending on how you do in our scholarship test. So do take it. The next exam is due on 25th June at 11 a.m. Register now, take the test, do well in it, get a huge waiver on your CAT fees. What does it take to get into IIM Ahmedabad? Gautam Bawa is going to talk about that in conversation with Vipula. Alright, Gautam himself had got selected in IIM Ahmedabad but went to IIM Calcutta instead. Alright, why? He will tell you why. Ask him someday. Thank you guys. Alright, these are our social media handles. Make sure you are part of all of them. Thank you very much. रोज नहीं हो रहा है, हर ट्यूसडे हो रहा है. रोज होगा तो यू कैन नॉट टॉलरेट मी एवरी डे, बिलीव मी. सो हर ट्यूसडे आ जाइए 12 बजे. Ask your friends to join the session, and if you haven't yet put a like, please do, because then they will give me the session. Otherwise they'll say मैम कोई students आ ही नहीं रहे session में, कोई like ही नहीं कर रहा है. All right. I love reading comprehension. Therefore, I love telling students that reading is easy. Hrithik, thank you so much for all those compliments. I feel very good. All right. The best payment for a teacher is always a wonderful feedback. Thank you, Kalyani. Thank you, all of you. I'll see you again next Tuesday exactly at 12 o'clock. Be there on time. I will be there with yet another editorial. See you. Bye-bye. Take care.